Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessia, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays. I am Jessia, and I have my crew here that we get together every quarter or so and talk about the industry and what are the updates and what are we seeing out there. And I'd like you guys to go ahead and introduce yourself. Kate, you want to start?
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm in Los Angeles. Hi, I'm Kate Jerkens. I'm the Chief Business Officer for Uncle Nearest Premium Whiskey.
Caitlyn?
Yes, Caitlyn LuBell. I am the founder and chief connection officer for Biz, a recruiting agency focused strictly on the beverage industry.
And hi, I'm Erica Duecy. I'm the founder of Business of Drinks, which is both an advisory service for brands as well as a podcast.
Welcome, everybody. Julie wasn't able to make it today, so we're going to forge on with the four of us here. So we'll catch her in the next one. So I always like to kind of start out by looking at economic indicators and start kind of like looking down, and then we'll dive deeper into the different categories. But what I found when we talked last time, which was after quarter one, there was only one of the 7 economic indicators that were down, and that was consumer confidence and spending. And I'm showing that the yield curve inversion is an active warning, as well as the LEI decline in indicating risk. So I feel like we're not in a recession. I don't know if we'll ever get to one, but there's more risk that we will. And pretty sure tariffs have a good part of the reasoning for that. A mortgage debt is rising, credit card balances are up, and delinquencies are, like, if you look at student debt, this is something that I found very interesting. And I'll just pop this up so you can just take a look at it really quick. So I guess it makes sense, but debt in terms of the amount, the total is this auto debt and student debt are the same thing. 1.6 trillion. I was shocked.
Wow.
I mean, I know college is expensive, but we wonder why these 20-somethings and early 30-something can't buy extra non-essential goods like beer, liquor, wine, spirits, RTDs, whatever.
Right.
They're debt ridden, right? And if you look at the 90-day delinquencies over here, they're all up over a year ago. So this inflation, the fact the feds aren't easing up that, they don't want to, I get it. They don't want it to ease it too fast and then have it go in reverse like they did in the 70s. So, I thought that was really interesting because it kind of tells the story. We were talking about Erica's podcast that she had with Buchard and Robobank, and they were talking about why young kids aren't purchasing as much. And this is kind of an indicator of that, right?
They can't afford
absolutely.
it, right?
Yeah.
And then just if you look at debt and per capita debt, it's all up. And then obviously the delinquencies, as I just showed. So in other words, the economy isn't bad. We're still adding jobs. That's good. Unemployment, I think, is around 4%. So all in all, it's not bad. It's just when you live in a category that's not non-essential for life, it kind of puts things into perspective, right? Of where the pressures are on the economy and different sectors of people. And I don't have to go through all of this. We all know where the growth is, right? It's the same. I don't see anything really different or changing from THC, RTDs, and NA beverages. I know that when I go and I look at the top brands, and I'll show you, it's the same ones. You look at the top selling brands, most of them are in serious decline. I mean, this column right here. And then when you look at the top selling brands here, what is it? Buzzball, Surfside, Cutwater, High Noon, Carbliss, Beatbox, Sun Cruiser. It's where it's at,
Wow. Amazing.
You got some tequila and some bourbon. And other than that, it's just all canned or RTDs or whatever. And this is from January through June. So is this kind of what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I will say I had something really interesting happen. I was meeting with a California-based grocer talking about non-alc, and something that came up was the shelf stability with non-alc beverages, which was interesting. And they were having to they had chosen to decrease their shelf set for non-alc because it's not shelf stable. So a lot of it starts to have to be, because it's like there's a lot of juices and all that kind of stuff. And so
Yep.
they were, a lot of them were expiring before they were being sold. And so they were reducing their shelf set by half. And it's the first time I'd heard that,
Wow,
but
by
it makes
half?
sense. Yeah, by half.
Wow,
And
that's a
I
lot.
thought that was very interesting because well, the non-alc are expensive, right? They're inexpensive. Like when I look at some stuff I've tried, those are also quite frankly luxury items in my opinion. Like to buy, I guess like I hate to say this, like if when you could just drink like a Coke or like a glass of orange juice, but you're choosing to drink something that's like fancy versions of all of that together, that's a luxury item. A B, then the fact that they are juice based and that they're going to expire, I think it'll be interesting to watch that trend. It was and this was a high end grocer, and it was the first time I'd heard where they're like, yeah, we just can't afford to keep all of that on the shelves and watch it not move as quickly as it needs to move. I thought that was very interesting.
Wow.
That is
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, I think it really varies depending on what type of product we're talking about. Certainly, juice-based products are going to have a shorter shelf life. But for a lot of the other non-alc, I mean, I think that, for non-alc, it's even though it's on a small base, like, $1 billion category versus a $500 billion category for alcohol, that's still where I'm seeing a lot of growth. So non-alc is forecast to grow 7% a year through 2028, which I think is indicative of this broader trend that we're seeing, which is, across the board, American drinkers are really kind of leaning into moderation, but that doesn't necessarily mean like a dry January kind of way. It's more like light drinking and taking breaks and, or could be like sticking just to one category per occasion. So it's almost like zebra striping, but across culture, not just for the Gen Zs. And I think it's, I think that's part of it. And then part of it is that kind of across the board, we're seeing a shift to more casual drinking moments. And that feels like a real opportunity. So like the RTDs are having so much traction in this space. Even like Prosecco's or non-alc sparklers are showing up at brunches, barbecues, backyard hangs, So I think there are glimmers of hope throughout the broad sort of drinks space, but it's really very specific, like brand by brand, example by example almost.
And I'd be curious to see the difference between on-premise, like if there was any way to track that, right? But like independent on-premise versus like off-prem. So retail maybe is pulling it, but are more people drinking non-alc when they're going out? Or is it, I always ask bartenders that. I'm like, how's your NA section do? And I get mixed reviews, and it depends on time of year too, right? They're like, oh, well, dry January, people were drinking a lot of the booze-free stuff, but then they start drinking again in February. But I'm so intrigued. I always ask on-prem accounts, I'm like, wow, you have a lot of NA options. What do they sell? And I kind of got responses across the board. So that's super interesting about.
You were talking about a specific market or New York, Atlanta?
Yeah, I
Colorado?
ask kind of when I go out, when I travel, and Denver and New York and wherever. I just always kind of ask because that's the bartender in me, the 18-year-old bartender in me. It's like, how are these drinks doing? Is anybody buying these? Who's buying them? I'm just so curious about the category because it's not a category that I consume. Like if I'm going out, I want to drink, but so I'm just more curious about it because I don't know about it that much, and I'm not in sales anymore, and I'm not behind the bar anymore. So I'm always like, give me the skinny on how this is doing.
Yeah. The people I'm around, the most people that I know that drink non-alc is really in the beer segment. Like my husband and I, like we made it, we cut back, and he loves the athletic brew. Like he's like, I had no idea that non-alcoholic beer could taste so good. And by the way, it's made a huge improvement because I remember being pregnant 3 times and ever always being like, I want a beer and have one. The old non-alcs were not good. Some of these ones are great. And I've seen a lot more of like especially male friends who switched to a non-alc here and beers, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we have a new episode on Business of Drinks about Ration Ale. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's Ration
No?
ALE
Should I try it?
Brewing, which is a non-alc beer, but it's like a craft non-alc that's kind of a
Interesting.
challenger for athletic. But I just did this interview with the founder, Jamie Fay, and he grew this thing only in 8 small markets based in like San Diego on out to kind of the regional area. But he grew in 4 years to more than 100,000 cases, just essentially like almost focused entirely in California and then just starting to spread out a little bit. So I think like the NA opportunity for those brands who are being very smart and strategic and have a very clear differentiation point, like this is essentially like the craft NA beer for people who are zebra striping between, they're drinking alcohol, but they also want something that is like fully on parity to what they're drinking on the outside. So like those types of stories I'm finding, and I'm like, wow, that's like 100 and some % growth year over year. So I think we still are seeing those exciting sort of brand specific moments happen.
I think the non-alc beer, like something, my husband is nearly 50 and he's like, at the end of the day, he's like, if I pour it in a glass, to me, he's like, I kind of realize I just like, it's almost like, I drink decaf coffee now, because if I drink caffeinated coffee, I'm crazy, but I like the ritual of drinking coffee, right? And so I think people really enjoy
I
ritual
can't imagine, Kate. Yeah.
You don't need it. I don't need it. But the ritual beer, so he's like, and it tastes so good, you don't miss the other pieces of it, which I just, I find it interesting. I think non-alcoholic cocktails, I've yet to find one. For me, I'd rather just consume calories differently, I guess, would be for me. But so I found some of
that's
them.
me. That's how I am. I'm like, I don't want all the sugar in the.
That's
No,
the problem with
I want something lower
a lot
cal,
of them have
not
sugar.
Yeah. So some of the ones that are coming out that are more kind of seltzery based and they have adaptogens in them, but no sugars and things like that, like Recess and some of these other guys, those ones I can get on board with. And I think mixologists are going to have be tasked with figuring out how to make mocktails and to make these non-alcoholic cocktails, ones that are less sugar and more kind of about maybe what they do, like what their benefits are, because the sugar piece I think is going to keep it from being sustainable over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was, I've been to so many conferences this year already, and the thing I keep on seeing come up across like sort of all categories is functional drinks. And I think like functionality is now becoming like a baseline part of drinks brands. So like brands with hydration, immunity, digestion, energy, this idea of longevity, promoting longevity, these things are just coming up over and over again in like all the presentations, all the breakout brand winners, like all these types of like any brand that's getting traction now, I'm almost like, okay, what's their functional benefit, right? Because that is just like getting people excited. And I think it kind of reflects a shifting landscape. We're seeing the GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, we're seeing people just focused on hydration and on nutrition. And then that's just pushing demand for these types of things. So I think there's definitely opportunity out there. I talk to a lot of THC brands and I'm like, okay, what's your functional benefit? Because that's pretty much going to be like the price of entry for that category moving forward.
Yeah, I just had the pleasure to go to the Hemp Beverage Alliance Expo event in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was so cool.
Was it lit? Sorry.
Let me tell you, I had to say it's so funny. At the end of like each day, I was like, the people that are a booze event and the people that are this event, everybody was super chill. Friendly. Everybody was so nice and calm.
Everybody's friends with everybody.
The vibe was amazing. It was so chill. And then I was just laughing in my head thinking of like the end of like New York Food and Wine Festival or like these big boozy events where bumping into each other, and and this, everybody was like, it was like, yeah, that's great. It was so cool. But I couldn't believe it. I mean, there were 150 tables. It was insane. Like, it was a giant room, 2-day long walk around event where I was going up, and it was everything from sugar-based drinks to seltzer-based drinks to some of them tasted like you were chewing on a weed plant, and some of them tasted like you couldn't even taste the difference. And then some of them even had little drops or like a bottle of booze. It looked like a spirits bottle, but it was THC that they're like doing like a topper on a margarita or on a
Yeah.
non-alc drink. And they're just doing like a little bit of a topper on these non-alc or booze-free
Was
mocktails,
there
whatever you want to call them.
was there a conversation about the combination? And I'll tell you why I asked that, because I was at Tales of the Cocktail for 20 hours last week. That's all I can. I'm too old. But there are a lot of like signs everywhere about like reminding people that combining THC and alcohol can, like just as a reminder. And I guess I'm curious about that, if there's that conversation in some of these conferences, because I think that's going to be sort of this next piece where there's bars that can sell both, where there's stores that can sell both. What's the conversation about the combination?
So I think a lot of them are more suggesting that you use like a booze-free cocktail and top it then with their THC beverage or whatever instead of, not in addition to. But then they were like, hey, if you want a margarita or espresso martini and you put a few drops in here. So, but I think their goal is to almost replace, right? Because they're,
Right.
I
Yeah.
created a THC beverage. I want people to drink this instead of booze. So, and I think also you can have a few and you're not getting like over the edge to the point where you're like, okay, I need to stop. You just kind of keep going, because some of them are really low dose. And so I actually was really appreciative of the low dose ones, because some of them were like 10 milligrams for a can.
Oh,
And that's just like too much. But
a
some of
lot.
them,
yeah.
some of them were 2 milligrams to 5 milligrams. And so they just gave you this nice little buzz. And to me, it's actually smarter, because then you're going to order another one, right? It's the same with high proof booze compared to, low alc booze. It's like, I drink Campari and Club soda just because I can have a few more, and rather than a, straight tequila on the rocks or something. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
they were
interesting.
more leaning into instead, I feel
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
But then they were like, do whatever you want with it. As long as you're drinking it, we're happy. Sorry,
Yeah.
Erica, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to add to that, like, it's interesting because, well, a couple points there. Yeah, even so, I'm in New Jersey, and like at the bar just a couple blocks from my house now, you can get Nowadays, which is one of those brands.
Yeah.
We did an interview with them on Business of Drinks, and that's essentially like a 1-to-1 replacement. But at the bar, you can literally add that to your margarita, right? So like out in the field, I don't think that messaging about swapping them on and off is necessarily happening. At least it isn't at my corner bar. But interestingly, where we're seeing all the growth right now in THC beverages is for the 10 milligram products. So like the 10 milligram dosage products. And some of that's RTDs, some of it's just like in the spirits looking format, the bigger 750 mLs. But I think that it's kind of, we talked about this recently on an episode, and our take on it was that previously you had a lot of DTC products, right? So like people were trying them out, but now that they're in retail and on shelves, people are thinking more about like best bang for the buck, and that 10
Interesting.
milligram as a best bang for the buck compared to something that's a 2 milligram on the shelf next to it is
For the
where
same
people are
price?
starting for the same price, right? That's where I think
Interesting.
people are starting to like do the mental math and being like, well, maybe I'll sip a little bit less, or I could split this with a friend or what have you. Or if they're, way more like, like my husband definitely weighs however many 30 pounds more than me, he can have one of those. But like I
Yeah.
could not have one of those, right? I
Yeah.
could not do a 10 milligram. Could maybe do like a 3 to 5. That's probably my limit. So I think it really
Yeah.
depends, like kind of, are you a habitual THC user? How much do you weigh? Do you
Tolerance, yeah.
how do you metabolize it in general? Like, I think everyone probably metabolizes a little differently. So I think there's a lot at play there, but it's interesting to see that like bang for the buck start to show up in retail channels.
It does make sense, although I would think on premise would maybe push the lower ones because they want to get additional sales, right? But then retail, it's like that totally makes sense. So it's a very interesting category. I'm super excited about it. I think, I don't know, I think the toppers were super interesting because it's like now you can give this to the bartender. They can make their own cocktail, whether it's a mocktail or a booze infused or whatever. But then just to have that as like an added addition, I thought was really, really an interesting kind of little plus there.
I also find it fascinating some of the markets that will, I mean, like I live in California, which is like fast and loose, but not with marijuana. Like we may have been one of the first to make it legal, but it's sold separately, right? In separate stores. There's no alcohol in those stores. It's only, and I don't see it available in any kind of on-premise situation, but yet there's other markets that sort of shock me, I mean, where you can just, it's like it can be sold anywhere and everywhere,
Yeah.
and it's interesting it's fascinating to me to watch because I don't know how many places, like where I live, I don't think there's any bartenders that could put a THC topper on anything,
Yeah. I mean, it's so the hemp-derived THC is sold in 20 some states at like liquor stores and so forth, even convenience stores, grocery, natural grocery in a lot of places.
It's like a
But
loophole or something, right?
exactly, it's the Farm Bill loophole, some people call it, but that's going to be like, that's actually in discussion right now, and probably the latest that we'll see a sort of judgment on that will be October. So like October is when the Farm Bill has to be updated or changed. So, but there, I keep on seeing updates that may come sooner, so it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen right now and what the final outcome would be. I think there's a lot of alcohol companies right now are in support, including the WSWA, wanting to bring THC products, particularly hemp-derived THC products, into the distribution space, especially because these RTDs and spirits sort of formats of like the 750 mLs are taking kind of creating new revenue opportunities for them that is especially in like a declining, where other categories might be declining. So I think it is a fantastic opportunity for distributors, for other brands in the alcohol space to be kind of saying, how do we incorporate these products into our current product set or into our portfolios? Because that may be, one of the fastest growing areas of sales acceleration in the foreseeable future.
A lot of them are talking about growing their teams, getting into additional states. And then, the exciting thing for me was like, there's so many unemployed. It blows me away that the statistic is so low on unemployment because I guess I'm in the space, right? So I talk to people bombarding all day, every day, looking for jobs. And so I feel like our industry, maybe unemployment rate might be quite a bit higher than the national standard. But the exciting thing is these beverages want people from the booze industry, or people from the booze industry are like getting a little tired and jaded and angry. And they're like, we ask all the time when we talk to them, when we talk to a candidate, we're like, do you want wine, spirits, beer, alternate bev? How do you feel about, hemp-derived beverages? Everyone's always like, oh yeah, I would totally do that. I'm excited about that. I'm intrigued by the category. So it's exciting for us because we see so many unemployed people out there and we want to help every single one of them, and we can. But so like, great if the industry is shifting and beverages are increasing, great. Hopefully they're going to need jobs. They're going to need to hire, right? And then these people from our business can kind of do the liaison. So it's exciting to see them grow because I'm like, great, more jobs for more people. That's what I see in my eyes,
But you have a product that's based on legislation that's going more
Without a doubt.
conservative than right. So like I was just reading here, like
Interesting point,
Texas
yeah.
Senate Bill 5 aiming to ban intoxicating hemp products, including THC drinks. So I think there are some states that are going against this.
Yep.
And
Definitely.
if it doesn't get done federally very soon, who knows what the future is. I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't want it to go away or anything like that, but we have to be mindful. Like I would think that starting a THC company would be a little frightening in that sense. I mean, 20 states is good, but we work in export, and there's only a few countries that even are allowing it. There's with Kate, with your brand, I'm sure you guys we're excited about the international opportunities to keep growing and growing a brand that doesn't exist in THC.
Yeah,
You know, like
that's true.
so it's
But
something to be
even as a
mindful
smaller
about.
brand trying to think about ways to expand internationally, when on any given day the tariffs can go one way or another, it's been like
Sure.
that's just it's lessened. My focus is lessened there at this moment.
Yeah.
To your
And
point, in
that's our
Texas, I
reality
was
now.
there, and yeah, I was in Texas in June for a week. I was all over Texas, and every liquor store had just a big shelf of these hemp-derived THC products, and they are
Wow.
doing so well with them and are just so nervous about what is going to happen in the state. And they kept saying a decision was supposed to be made. It feels like maybe it's being delayed, but they're selling the heck out of it.
So
Yeah.
And they
there
were
was a
just so
few
nervous.
there were a few people. I met this one woman who she was working for a brand, but she also said that she was on the Texas board of basically advocating for these beverages and stuff. And so I haven't gotten back with her yet, just because the event just happened. But I know that there's a big push in Texas for this category and for saving it and increasing it and growing it or protecting it, however you want to look at
Yep.
it. But I mean, compliance, I mean, we're all super used to compliance, right? And
Yeah.
compliance issues and different laws in different states and counties and things. But I think they're even more challenged. And it was kind of like, I would love to see it in black and white and see what each state is doing and where they can be sold, because I was so intrigued by it. I was like, where are you selling? Like, this is a great product. Who has it? Does the bartender have it? Does the indie retailer
Where do I
have
get
it? Are you in chains? Yeah. Like, and then they're like, DTC, like, order online. And I'm like, no, that's great. But like, I'm looking for you guys to grow the industry so that I can have jobs for people who are unemployed. So where's it going? And a lot of them were like, not sure yet.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to
Something-
remember that there's two channels in the THC space as well, right? There's like the hemp-derived THC, the Delta 9, which can be sold in, many states and liquor stores and so forth. That's, that has been the sort of like Wild West, where, like
you never know what you're gonna get.
Exactly. Well, but we interviewed Breeze. You probably have seen
Breeze
that
is
brand,
great.
BREZ. They did like $54 million in sales so far this year. It's like ridiculous how much they're bringing in. But so that's one side of the business where that's like the Wild West. Now let's talk about the other side of the business, which is dispensaries. And we just did an interview with leader at Mac Huber, who is with this brand Heirloom, like AYRLOOM.
So good.
So
The
that
heirlooms
one
are really yummy.
That's really interesting to me because they're fully in like dispensaries only, but in 4 years, they're doing 250,000 cases of their RTDs, right? Like full THC cannabis based RTDs. Their wholesale run rate is $50 million right now. And that's in one state. That's in New York. They're the number one THC beverage brand, cannabis brand in New York, but $50 million in one state? Yes, like that. Now that is an interesting opportunity. And like they had previously, they knew how to work through distribution because they had a hard cider brand. It's called Heirloom because it's actually like a huge hard cider orchard upstate New York. And now they do a full seed to sip shipment, the whole operation at this one facility there. But yeah, I mean, that you can grow in 4 years, 2,000 cases is like astounding to me through dispensary routes.
So that was the first one I ever tried. And it was the only one available at this dispensary. Like the dispensaries, some of them, at least in New York and Colorado, from what I've seen, they're not having 10 offerings or 20 offerings. They're having like 1 or 2 brands that they just kind of get behind. Maybe that's because they hire good salespeople and the salespeople are going out and getting it or what. But
yeah, they do a lot of education because it's even more regular. Like they can't even do any type of promotions. Social media is very restricted. Like all they can do is bud tender education. That's it. Buyer education. That's all. So they have invested a lot in that.
Bud tender. Did you coin that?
No. That's been I remember that way back from my Amsterdam trips of
Yeah,
Goodness,
my early
I have my
20s.
I have my head in the sand. Clearly,
it's pretty good. It's a pretty good one.
well, I think also, I'm one of these people, and I don't know how common this is, but I can't do both. I'm not really a pot person. It's not a great thing. I mean, I don't care about it, but my body can't handle both. So I'm surprised that they're wanting to. It's interesting that bars, the bar scenes are trying to do a floater. I know I had a gentleman on that we're in Minnesota. It's a really big deal. And he's literally creating products just for Minnesota because they're doing floaters on drinks. And I just can't imagine the combination of the two like that. It would just be
I think
just
if it's a
too
low
much.
dose, it might be okay.
Yeah.
But like a 10 milligram in a margarita or something like like a strong Negroni or something, I'd be like, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't do the
Yeah.
old fashioned in a topper is not going to be it.
Yeah, I have one drink and I'm like, I'm good. I'm ready for bed.
Like,
Munchies in bed.
Aperol spritz or something. I mean, for me, mixing both is very juvenile. It feels like stuff I was doing in high school and college,
Yeah.
right? Where you're like drinking beers and smoking weed. And I don't know. It just, yeah, to me, it doesn't feel like as an adult we should be doing the both, but that's just me. And it just, yeah, it's just,
Because it's a new category and people are experimenting. And,
Yeah.
the bartenders, they still want to make, especially the real mixologist bartenders, they still want to make their fancy cocktails, but they're like, okay, it's an additional offering, or, I don't know, they're probably charging an upcharge or something like that. And then the bar's making more money and
yeah.
people are experimenting. I'm with you though. I'd like, if I'm going to do a non-alc, then sure, give me a little floater and keep it simple.
As a liquor brand, we've been asked to participate in like the dinners, or be the spirit sponsor for these dinners. That's actually in California. There's a lot of like chefs, and I'm sure everywhere that people are like cooking with marijuana, right? And so then us to be like the spirit sponsor, and we've been really pointed with saying no, because we don't want to be responsible for whatever that looks like when it's all mixed together. And eating it is a very different experience than even drinking it, and the delay time on how it affects people is just so.
It's definitely an interesting category.
I think it'd be interesting to have more of the adaptogens added to drinks versus the marijuana or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see so much of that, like, kind of like coconut water to hydrate, vitamins to give this effect, very much along the lines of recess and kin euphorics. Right. And I think more and more we'll start to see beverages wherever brands can, they will market by mood, right? So like uplifting or energetic or calming, relaxing, I think in the non-alc space, we've seen that work really well. And I think it's
especially in
for the
coffee.
THC brands, I see more and more doing that for, it's kind of sticky for how alcohol brands have to be very careful with how they use those terms, given the regulations in the space around how to market these, but I think where brands can talk about, mood and feeling, that has proven to be a very successful strategy. So we'll see more moving towards that. I mean, even look at like probiotics, the whole probiotic promise of the Oli Pops and Poppies and the kombuchas, like all of those have really shown like any sort of, promise of like gut health, like that's appealing. Like all of these adaptogenic sort of messaging strategies are really resonating, especially with younger consumers.
Yeah.
All right, you're back.
I was trying to say it's funny because some of those adaptogens and some of those products, they don't have to even do that much, but the promise of it helps, because quite frankly, like my 2 teenagers and my 9-year-old drink Poppy like crazy. That doesn't do anything for their stomachs. I'm pretty sure they're all sort of like normal, but they just like love the flavor of it and love that it feels fun and it's a soda and it's not a lot of sugar, right? So it's like all of these kind of like adaptogenic drinks don't have to do that much, but saying that they do, like it gives people this feeling of like,
it's like the placebo effect, right?
Right.
You're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is going to make me chill. Great.
Yeah.
And then you feel chill. I actually
Done.
I like when things are labeled like that personally as a consumer, because I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to do it. Maybe it's placebo. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll take it. I'm cool with placebo effect.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is going to make me feel like great. Like, I need that. I got to clean my house, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so funny.
Well, has anybody heard anything about all these companies, the fallout of RNDC in California and all these companies going to Reyes? And what I heard at BC Brooklyn was Reyes is taking a lot smaller margin because Kate, I remember, I don't know what episode we were doing, but you were kind of wondering what goes on in those conversations. And that's what I'm hearing is that they're taking lower margins than like a typical 30 or 35%.
So as somebody who is distributed by RNDC in California, I've been in the trenches these last few months. It's been
So
very
sorry
interesting.
for you.
Thank
Ugh.
you. A
Yeah.
lot of shopping, a lot of great conversations, lots of tours, meeting really incredible. What I love about this is like small mid-tier distributors are getting to shine right now. And
Yes.
Yep.
it's great for them. And I have met some incredible people. Still, Reyes is taking a ton of new, like to me, so many suppliers. My hunch right now, they're not giving in on margin at this point. They were that this is a
Really?
distributor. I don't think so anymore. I mean, possibly I could be wrong.
Probably not anymore.
They don't
Yeah.
have to. And the reality is they need to beef up. Like they now have some really big brands and
Yeah.
yeah, so I would guess, I think like this prior, before anyone knew anything was happening with RNDC, that was their selling point. But it is a distributor's game right now in California.
Yeah.
It's been
And
really
it's
interesting.
tough.
I've been following like who's hiring, and they're building up their teams and things like that. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. It makes me really happy when I see some of the smaller distributors getting brands, and I'm like, oh, good for
Yeah.
them. Like they're stepping up, they're hiring, they're getting in the game, and it's great. A
They've
lot of
got
brands.
big expansion plans.
A
Yeah.
lot of brands went to Breakthrough. A lot. I think it was over 24 on the last list that I saw. So they got them definitely a good handful went to Southern, but then there's all these other mid-tier distributors, which it does make me very happy because I want them to have more brands and I want them to be more successful and grow. And I think it's
There's
better
a
for
lot
the
of
whole industry.
there's upside for suppliers too. You'll be surprised. We haven't made our announcement yet, but we're going with what I'd consider small to medium. And one of my biggest things is in these large distributors. And I would say at any of them, we have great partners across the country, but there's a lot of layers. And so we're really excited to almost like look at how we can relaunch and like reinvigorate our brand here and be a part of it and not have any layers. And I think there's so much plus side for a lot of us. I do also talk to a lot of smaller brands or startup brands that it's been really tough for, those that were like looking for distributors in California, and this is going to keep them from being able to expand in California for quite some time. Because when you look at what Reyes, Southern, and Breakthrough, and then these other smaller distributors have had to bring on, there just won't be bandwidth to onboard many other suppliers at this point, probably for a good amount of time.
My guess is Reyes got too big too fast, and I
That's
don't know
how I
if they
feel.
have. Yeah,
Well,
I don't know if they have all
Reyes,
the.
I've
people they
always been
need.
told Reyes was the number one, distributor in the US for beer. I was always taught that because I didn't work the beer industry until I started recruiting. And then I started touching the beer industry, so I started asking because I was new to it. And I'm like, who's the number one? Because in New York, we have like Manhattan Beer and Oak Beverage and like the smaller guys. But I'm like, hold on, my company does nationals. Who's the Southern in RNDC in the beer side? And I was always told Reyes.
They are for beer, but it's a different sell to sell beer
100%.
versus spirits. And it's a big learning curve. We work with some beer distributors and it's been a great experience, but it takes time. The time of sell, like the actual selling in, is a very different experience.
Definitely.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I think they're beefing up their sales team and
It's got to be, yeah.
Yeah, and doing trainings for spirits and things. Go ahead, Erica.
Yeah,
talk to
I
them.
think when you think about Gallo and like a brand like High Noon, it makes perfect sense because where are those RTDs sold? Convenience channels, like essentially places where you would sell beer. But yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to watch Reyes scale up more robustly into the spirit side. Will they be, taking on many wine brands? Like I think it'll be interesting to see where they end up putting their development dollars and like which brands they're able to bring on and how that business will perform in the coming year. But I agree that the opportunity there's just such a need for small to middle sized distributors
Yes.
And, to your point, Kate, I think that's just such an opportunity to have a more robust partnership, right? Like, so that you're working not with just someone who is a logistics provider, but if you're a key brand like Uncle Nearest and you're going to a smaller to mid-sized distributor, like that could be a marquee brand for them and they want to provide a wonderful experience. So they're putting in probably, some marketing power behind it and helping to create a robust strategy in market. Whereas, other types of partnerships are just that logistics provider. So it's a great opportunity for these smaller to mid-size, and I hope we see more of them. I keep on saying like launch a distribution company because
Me too.
there
I
is a
tell
need.
everybody.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I need more distributors because we talk to these emerging brands every day and they, the big guys won't take them. There's a line out the door for the medium-sized guys and the small guys aren't in enough accounts. And so, it's like, but I keep telling people too, I'm like, you want to start something in an industry, start a distributor.
The
Please.
the on and off premise have to agree to take on
Correct.
those as like, it's like just getting the paperwork filled out. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like the biggest thing that just happened in California is like all these guys, they now have to work with everybody because there's not just 3 big guys anymore. There's a whole bunch.
I'll tell you.
I bet they're
So
not
I think
thrilled
that's
about
going to be
that.
interesting.
Biz Business is working on a little something.
I like it. I
think that there's a broken piece to the puzzle that I think that Biz is going to be able to maybe help and navigate through because there is a big challenge to get the buyer to. So anyway, I'll just shut up. But that's definitely something that I think about a lot when I talk to. Biz is definitely I'm working on some ideas and some things that I think there's some broken pieces in the industry still that I think we may be able to solve. So it's something in the works. Yeah.
I love it.
Like
Innovation.
Yes,
Come on the podcast.
exactly.
Let's talk about it.
Evolution. I said that was my word for 2025 was evolution when we talked about that on our first podcast, I think. And definitely Biz is an evolution and the industry is evolving so rapidly that we all can't even keep up with it, right? But
well, I mean, we were status quo until 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, RTDs kind of started changing the landscape quite a bit, probably 10 years ago.
DTC made a big change in the industry.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty, I wouldn't say boring, but it was pretty like steady Eddie, and like to your point, Caitlin, these steady Eddie companies aren't steady Eddie anymore. You just saw they're down $4, $5, $6 million just this year.
I'll tell you, when I talk to candidates, I used to say when they started using the word stability, like I need stability, I need long term, I don't want to work with an emerging brand because they may run out of money and I may be unemployed again. And then my resume is all bouncy, stability. And my line, literally, I like go to a distributor, Southern or RNDC or Breakthrough or a distributor, that's stable. And then what happened here? It was like Southern did layoffs multiple times, RNDC, all the drama with that. And I'm like, well, there's no stability in the industry anymore. When these giant distributors are locking their doors, there is no stability in the industry. So I'm like, just take your best shot. How's that? And at least jumpy resumes aren't as bad as they used to be. Although I do still have clients that are like, oh, well, they've had 4 jobs and since 20, like, well, yeah, because
this is the business. Yeah.
Companies keep changing.
I feel that our industry is sort of a product of COVID, people being bored at probably drinking too much and creating brands.
Yeah, there was almost too much innovation during COVID, probably. Like there was a lot born out of COVID.
Too much pot, too much THC.
There was too much drinking. There was more drinking than we'd ever seen, and then a lot of innovation, and everything's right sizing now.
I said this before on one of our talks, but I think what happened was people lost their jobs. And so they were sitting down and their entrepreneurial bones started getting poked because they're like, I need to make money. So I need to do something. No one's hiring. Let me now do my own thing. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I think like there has been always a surge of new brands coming out and, new flavors of vodka and new whiskeys and things like that.
Nothing like this though.
But this is what happened. People had no choice. They were like, I need to make money. I just lost my job. The restaurants are closed, whatever. Let me work on that project that I've been really wanting to do for so long. And definitely, like, I think the entrepreneurial bone got poked from COVID.
Yeah.
And I think it was a survival mode
Yeah,
situation,
could be.
but also like, well, I've always wanted to do my own thing. So what time is better than now when I'm sitting at home getting unemployment and I can, now focus on this new project that I want to do. So,
Do you feel
Right.
like our industry has more innovation in it than others? I see quite a bit of
definitely.
innovation in the on the food side though.
Yeah, I see a lot of innovation on the food side, but I think from my perspective, it's, I talk to a lot of brands across all areas of the drink space, like including, energy drinks and like other types of NA drinks. And I would say I see the most innovation happening in NA and THC right now. And so I think there's a lot of, like I was saying, with around the functional drinks, there's just so much happening in that space. And I think it's going to continue. But I do think that I think it's a bit cyclical, right? Like, so people were saying, Gen Z is not drinking alcohol. And then I think the innovation lens and the investment lens went away from alcohol into these other spaces, right? But now actually we're starting to see a shift there. So I don't know if you saw this recent, like the IWSR's latest report that just came out from their Bevtrac survey, and it's showing like a huge shift among Gen Zs back towards drinking alcohol, which
Yes.
that was like a super eye-opening thing to me. So, looking at the studies, like in March 2023, according to IWSR, only 46% of US Gen Z respondents to this survey said that they'd had alcohol in the past 6 months. But by March 2025, that number had jumped to 70%, from 46% to 70%. So in just 1 year, we're seeing like a huge shift there. Overall, we're seeing that Gen Z is still drinking a little bit less than the overall adult average of around 78%, but that behavior is now starting to look a lot more like everyone else. So I do think that there's some sort of cyclical thing here, maybe Gen Z, perhaps because of COVID or like the spending power issues that we've discussed, a variety of reasons, like mental health reasons, all these types of reasons that we could debate.
Yeah.
But I think
They're
it's
living with
all
mom
of
and
the
dad longer
factors.
too.
Yeah, I think it's all of the factors have
Mom
made
and dad
it
are buying them booze.
Yeah.
so that Gen Z was slower to adopt alcohol, but it does appear, if we're starting to look at some of this survey data, it does appear that that behavior may be starting to get back to prior levels. So I think it's interesting and like something to keep tracking, that this may not be the generation that goes away from alcohol, like maybe we're kind of moderating in various ways across generational lines. But, to the prior point, it does make me think like we're seeing all the innovation in THC and non-alc right now, but as behaviors shift and demand increases, maybe it's going to swing back.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And, talking about, all these small to mid-sized distributors, we're really coming full circle back to back in the direction of where this all started when
Yeah.
Diageo did this 25 years ago. And that's what kind of keeps things exciting, at least from my point of view. We don't really want just 2 or 3 distributors. We want the more entrepreneurial business owners out there. So I think that's very exciting. And I don't know if you guys get emails from Park Street, but they had one that came out on June 10th where they're basically saying that the spirits, they feel like that's kind of stabilizing and that we're kind of getting to our new normal, and that next year we might, it might get a little bit better. It says here projects that core spirits will bottom out at minus 4.56 by the end of 25, improving to minus 4.09 by Q2 of 26. So not great, but better, right? This is from Sip Source, by the way. Yeah, because they had
Listen,
obviously a
people
lot
are
more
always
declines
gonna
in
drink.
22 to 24.
People drink when they're
It's not
happy.
going
They
away.
drink when
Yeah.
they're sad. People are
Yeah.
always going to drink, and even if they swap out, they're going to go back to it. And it's everything. I don't know. I've been in the industry more years than I want to admit out loud, and watching it go up and down and, from beer, wine, spirits. And we didn't have all these additional categories for sure, but I don't know.
Well, do you remember the days where it was all vodka?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole back bar was every flavor you could possibly imagine. And then we just launched 4 more. Great. Go sell
I
these.
really miss Fruity Pebbles vodka. I really do.
The Van Gogh. I used
missed
to
out
love
on
the
that
Van
one.
Gogh vodkas. They had like 97 flavors of Van Gogh, and they were all so good, and they were so much fun to sell. The beautiful bottles. I loved the Van Gogh. That was my favorite thing to sell.
Yeah.
Fruity
I think
Pebbles
one
vodka, I
other-
might get on board with, though. Let's go. Let's talk more about
Fruity
that.
Pebbles vodka was so good.
Wow.
I don't eat gluten, or I try not to eat too much. And so, I mean, obviously it's just a sugar bomb. But when I was a kid, I ate that for 3 years straight for breakfast before school. I loved it. So
I
the
get
vodka
it.
came
I get
out.
it.
I was like, martini me up, please.
Yeah, childhood fate. Back to recruiting kids though to drink alcohol. I'm seeing more. By the way, we talked about that like a few. Like I am seeing it more and more, even to the point where my kids are getting offended by it now. How many like just normal everyday CPGs are now have alcohol in them? Dunkin'. We were on vacation up in the mountains, and there was a Dunkin' Donuts type drink that has that's alcohol. Like I was just shocked by
Really?
that too.
Yeah.
It
They
is.
just-
It's prolific. And if you ask a child what the word spiked means, only those whose kids have parents in the booze industry know what that means to differentiate. And that's all that's really differentiating them on these packages. It's crazy
Sure.
to me.
Yeah, I went into Total Wine a while back, and I found a whole section of Minute Maid. I mean, Total Wine
Yeah,
is
the
safe
Minute
for
Maid is
kids,
over the top
but
for me. It's too. It's
it's
that's
crazy.
a child's drink.
Yes, I think it's a dangerous game. They're
Sunny
playing.
Delight also if you think back to when we were younger, the Sunny Delight commercials, the Sunny D and like all that. Now it's Sunny D and vodka. It's like kids don't need help with that. They'll figure out how to combine those two at a high school party or a college party. They don't need our help.
Yeah, they don't need our help.
No.
A good point. Good point. Well, is there anything else that we haven't talked about? I know Erica's got to run here, but I thought this was really fun. I appreciate you ladies coming. I couldn't have predicted we would match. We all have black on,
I know.
which is pretty
It's
cool.
a little, is that addictive? It's a little doom and gloom of us. Maybe we should brighten it up next
All right, next
time.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. Solid colors. Solid colors. Okay.
I love it.
Do we want to do this again? You want to do like this post time frame?
Maybe like a
Meaning,
September,
like-
October or something, like going into OND and talking about the end of the year or something.
Yeah.
I was thinking October, right?
I'll be able to give you guys some fresh updates from the California, the RNDC transition, because we will all be through it by then too.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the end of it.
Yeah, I hope you guys are.
Well, congrats
running
on
by then.
finding someone to go with, because I know
Thank
that's
you. Yeah.
probably been
Yeah.
so
Tough.
stressful.
Stressful.
I feel so bad for all these. I couldn't believe, like, when I started seeing the list of all the companies, I'm like, wow, their portfolio is really big. That's a lot of brands.
It's some big
scrambling.
brands. Yeah.
And it's just
Especially
like,
small
even the
brands.
small brands. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, there's so many scrambling right now. And it's like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Why did they pull out? Like,
It's
what
more
was the major?
financial.
Yeah.
It
They
was
were
a
at a
big-
loss.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a constant loss.
Constant loss.
Constant loss. Yeah. And so it does make you wonder. I mean, the union, there's a big union piece that plays into it. It's very expensive, but that's one piece. The union exists in a lot of places, though.
I was going to say, that's
So it's
totally
like
bullshit. Like,
It comes up a lot, right? But it exists. It does exist almost everywhere else, and that's not been caused to pull out. It's just bigger. But yeah, they were at a loss, and at a certain point, when you're a market that represents fifth largest economy in the world is completely at a loss. It's a big loss too.
It's a big loss.
that
Yeah.
when they first went in and took over Young's, that was like not a good situation.
They never should
And
have bought Young.
So that they already started like 6 feet underground. And then from what I heard, I'm not speaking it, but that there was very poor upper management and, just not doing the right thing. And I think they were kind of being bullies with brands and suppliers, and the suppliers started being like, you know what? No, thanks.
Yeah.
This is just, what I hear is feedback, but
I'm just like this.
it makes me sad because I feel like I could have sent them 10 amazing candidates in 2 seconds that could have turned that entire business around in 18 months and saved it. So it makes me really sad. And I do hear the union as an excuse a lot, but I worked at Southern in New York. All the reps were union and all the management was not.
The union exists everywhere.
It was
Like, I gotta hop
challenging,
off.
but we navigated
Okay,
it.
Erica.
Okay.
Bye, Erica.
Bye,
Yeah.
guys.
All right.
Thanks for
y'all. Yeah,
coming.
I need to get booking, and I'm sorry. Thank you for waiting on me today. I appreciate you.
Yeah,
no,
thanks,
no
Jessie.
problem. So we'll just wave goodbye. Thank you, ladies, for coming.
Thanks
It
for
was
having
fun.
us.
Produced by Fedora J Productions. Tune in next Thursday and have a great week.